If you are under 40 years old, there is a strong chance you've never heard of the most influential voice in American media. Not because he lacked an audience, quite the opposite. There was a time when more than 24 million Americans stopped exactly what they were doing to listen to one man. Farmers climbing down from tractors, executives pulling into parking lots, housewives standing in kitchens, truck drivers easing off the accelerator. For 4 minutes each day, this country paused, not for outrage, not for breaking news, not for politics, but for a story. And his name was Paul Harvey. And now, the rest of the story. You see, Americans once had broadcasters. Today, we have content creators, influencers, opinion journalists, all shills, every last one of them, which is why trust in media is at an all-time low. But there is a difference. Content is manufactured, but broadcasting is earned. And Paul Harvey did not chase clicks. He was before that time, a better time. He chased truth wrapped inside curiosity, and he did it better than anyone ever before or since. He understood something modern media has forgotten. People do not remember information. They remember stories. He did not begin with conclusions. He began with questions. A mysterious inventor, a struggling artist, a penniless salesman, a frightened young mother. He'd invite you into the room. Let your imagination do the work. And only then reveal the identity that made you slap the steering wheel and say, no way. That pause, that reveal, that was his superpower. Long before YouTube invented audience retention, Paul Harvey had already mastered it. But here's the remarkable part. He wasn't manipulating attention. He was rewarding it. Every minute invested paid off in understanding. Today's algorithm rewards interruption. Harvey rewarded patience. There is a lesson there, because every great investor knows delayed gratification beats instant gratification. The same principle builds fortunes. It also built America's favorite radio show. Paul Harvey was not born into influence. He was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. His father was murdered when Paul Harvey was only 3 years old. His mother, of course, struggled. Money was scarce. Security, non-existent. But one teacher noticed something. The boy had a voice. Not simply a pleasant voice, a trustworthy voice. There was a difference. People do not invest with people who sound intelligent. They invest with people who sound believable. Trust compounds faster than money. The lesson would shape the rest of his life. As a teenager, Harvey was already sneaking into radio stations before sunrise, grinding like very few teenagers today could possibly comprehend. He learned every job. Engineering, writing, editing, announcing, because before anyone could master the spotlight, they must master and first understand the machinery behind it. That principle never changes. The best CEOs understand accounting. The best investors understand operations. The best broadcasters understand silence. Harvey knew exactly when not to speak. His pauses became as famous as his words. In those silent moments, listeners leaned closer. Scarcity creates value, whether it's silver or gold or attention. And then came World War II, and then television, then the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s. Media changed. America changed. Technology changed. But Harvey never chased fashion. He anchored himself to something older. Faith, family, personal responsibility, optimism. Not naive optimism, but disciplined optimism. He believed America wasn't great because government made it great. America was great because millions of ordinary people chose responsibility over excuses. Farmers, teachers, mechanics, entrepreneurs, nurses, factory workers, people history books rarely mention. Paul Harvey celebrated them anyway, and loudly. He understood wealth is not created in Washington. It's created in workshops, in warehouses, offices, barns, garages, and yes, sometimes around kitchen tables. His famous segment, The Rest of the Story, wasn't really about famous people. It was about hidden value. Every company has hidden assets. Every balance sheet tells an incomplete story. Every acquisition has unseen risks. Every human being has chapters nobody else sees. Harvey trained America to look beneath appearances. Imagine what would happen if Wall Street did the same. Instead of quarterly earnings, character. Instead of headlines, history. Instead of hype, substance. Markets would probably become less exciting and much more profitable. One reason Harvey endured for decades was that he respected his audience. He never talked down to them. He assumed they were intelligent, busy, curious, and worth preparing for. That respect showed up in every sentence. Contrast that with today. Algorithms increasingly optimize for emotional reactions. Fear, anger, envy, outrage, because outrage monetizes quickly. Trust monetizes slowly. And Paul Harvey chose slowly. And that is why his audience stayed for generations instead of news cycles. Here's something else many people forget. Paul Harvey was deeply prepared. His effortless delivery hid hours of research. Every pause rehearsed. Every word weighed. Every reveal precisely timed. People saw 4 minutes. They never saw the work behind the 4 minutes. Success usually looks effortless. Only after somebody else has done thousands of hours of preparation. That's true in radio. It's true in investing. It's true in M&A. And when a $1 billion acquisition closes smoothly, outsiders think it happened overnight. They never see the months of diligence, the negotiations, the late nights, the invisible work. Invisible work creates visible success. Harvey understood another timeless principle. Technology changes, human nature does not. People still crave meaning. They still admire courage. They still love redemption. They still remember stories more than statistics. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If Paul Harvey were starting today, would the algorithm even recommend him? A man who paused instead of shouted, who inspired instead of divided, who trusted his audience to think instead of react. Would he survive in today's attention economy? Perhaps. Perhaps not. But maybe that's asking the wrong question, because great businesses don't merely adapt to markets. Sometimes they redefine them. Apple did not ask consumers what kind of phone they wanted. They showed them. Harvey didn't ask listeners whether they wanted slower storytelling. He proved slower could be better. That may be his greatest legacy. He reminded America that speed is not the same as progress, noise is not the same as wisdom, and popularity is not the same as significance, and information is not the same as understanding. In finance, there is a saying that price is what you pay, and value is what you get. Paul Harvey spent an entire career teaching America to search for value, not simply in companies or economies, but in people. Because behind every success story is usually an untold struggle, and behind every fortune, success. Behind every nation, character. We live in an age overflowing with information and starving for perspective. Paul Harvey specialized in perspective. He connected dots others never noticed. He reminded listeners that history whispers long before it screams. And perhaps that is why his voice still echoes decades later. Not because it was loud, but because it was trusted. And in the end, Paul Harvey wasn't merely a radio host. He was a steward of America's memory, a curator of its character, a storyteller who believed ordinary people could still do extraordinary things. And that belief may sound old-fashioned today, but so does balancing your checkbook, saving before spending, buying quality businesses, keeping your word, and yet those unfashionable habits have a remarkable tendency to outperform the fashionable ones. And maybe that's the rest of the story. Build that stack. iBankerU. Good day